Yes, and I think we are live. Hope so. Well, good morning to you, everyone. Today we will be doing an English chat. I hope you can understand my poor English. And well, first of all, for you who are coming here first time, this is a stream about craft beer and home brewing. So if you want to know more about it, then you are in the right place. If not, well, please stay in because we will share with you some exciting news and perhaps it might become a nice hobby for you as well as for us, so many folks that do homebrewing. Also, I would like to first tell you that although 2021 came, the pandemic did not go away. COVID-19 is still on. There is several restrictions in order. And well, what can I say? Please try to take every possible measure and precaution. Try to stay home as much as you can, avoid any closed space and any gathering or crowds. If you go outside, please wear a mask and try to always keep your hands clean as much as possible. Also, I would like to uh, give my thanks and admiration to all the health workers who are putting their lives on the front line for the sake of ours. So there goes my thank you to all the health workers. You rock, folks. Well, then it's craft beer. Today is the English chat, and we will discuss mostly three topics that will be Brazilian ale, Philly sour, and water. Also, I'd like to say that all this stuff is being recorded. I am recording it and will place it on our social media, mostly YouTube, Facebook too. I'm not sure if I can upload a 1 hour video there. Don't know. In YouTube I did it already. In Facebook I have not tried, but I will try to place this video there. Also, the sound will be placed in a podcast format, so if you are not able to watch the video, you can hear it. Well, so about this past month so, we began to discuss about what would make a Brazilian type of beer. We already have one type on the BJCP, American BJCP. That would be a beer Bible, sort of a guideline for all the styles which there are around the world. And there is one Brazilian style that's Catarina Sour. It's a sour beer with fruit addition, and it became Brazilian style accepted into the BJCP. But anyway, we are still chatting and discussing about others and what would constitute a Brazilian beer style, one which would be made by so many home brewers to be a common and fairly well-known style. And most of the guys in the home brewing scene would be doing several versions of it. And also we hope the beer industry would accept and integrate such a recipe and style into their portfolio. So we would have a Brazilian ale style to be uh, presented to the public. Of course, it has to be a style which would be fairly simple to make at home, so we can be sure that it will be quite popular, quite common. And also it would be best if there is already some style which is fairly common and well known and made by a fair number of home brewers. And yes, there are several styles as such as we can name, for instance, IPA. IPA is a style which is very well accepted and enjoyed by a lot of home brewers and beer drinkers in Brazil. But it's a well-known style. So if we are going to improve or do some original thing in it, we would have to kind of explore it more. There is a nice example of IPA, how it was, let's say, updated and modernized, and it was pushed into very streams. And one of the styles that's surfaced from it was New England IPAs. That's a fair example of it, and it's quite nice that we can have such a how can we say, such a modernization or novel type of old style new beer. Yes, IPA is quite old, and it was very popular, and now it kind of surfaced again, and it's quite nice. Anyways, we would have to make a style which is simple, common, popular around all Brazil, everyone doing it. Now and then there will be recipes showing. It can be a style which would use any advanced techniques, such as, for instance, wood-aged beer. The use of wood barrels to age beer is quite well known, but it's, how can I put it? It is a very advanced technique. I would say most home brewers don't do that, barrel-aged beer. What we have, and that's quite common, it's the use of wood chips into the beer, sort of like a dry hopping of wood chips, not a dry hopping of hops, but with wood chips. That's done. That's fairly common. Yes, fairly common. Even so, we would have to use some Brazilian wood. Yes, so we can use something from our country to give a local, let's say, taste. Wood is a fair ingredient. Even so, we can have a lot of other ingredients. Catarina Sour moved into the fruit addition and souring of beer, which is again extremely nice. I really enjoy a lot of Catarina Sours, but again, it's not, how would I say, it's not such a popular style. There is a nice movement. It began to grow. I can see it about 3 years up to date, but it's still not so popular. And also, aside from fruits, you can use wood or any other grown ingredient we might have in Brazil. Also, it's supposed to be a beer that's popular, so we can go into extreme uh, things such as IPAs, New England IPAs. Those are beers which are not well taken by the starting consumers, those used to mainstream beers. Uh, One of the things that happened in Brazil a few years ago was the introductions of the hoppy lagers. It was quite nice. There is some brands and some mainstreams even did their own types of hoppy lagers, and I think it was well accepted, and it opens the world of special beer or specialty beers of craft beer to the common consumer, to the mainstream consumer. So those are some of the ideas we can share about about another Brazilian style which might uh, be offered to the public in Brazil and abroad as well. Okay, uh, that said, let's drop this. If you have any issues, any questions, suggestions, any comments, just check out. I have listed all my social media in the about of this stream, of this channel. Not sure if it says channel in here, but you can let it any comments there. Okay, moving on, we'll go to Philly Sour. Yes, I know it's already a late topic for you guys in the US and Europe. Probably you already have it. It's already fairly common, but here in Brazil, I got notice about it like 4 months ago. Yes, sort of. It was like something like that, 4 or 5 months ago. It came to me. This new yeast from Lallemand, a Canadian yeast company, company specialty of yeast for brewers and home brewers. And at first time I was quite surprised and excited because it's a type of beer, sour beer. It's a type of beer that I really enjoy. I really came to enjoy such beers, and I have done my share of sour styles, sour beers. And the way we do here is we can do or a kettle sour, or we use any lacto to acidify the wort. But anyways, we have two steps. One is the acidification of the wort, and then we move into the boil, hop, cooling, aerating, and fermentation. Sorry. So, well, anyways, you must understand or just try to picture it. There is not one single fermentation producing a sour beer. You have to do at least two fermentations. One for the acidification, that you use any yeast or bacteria for lactic acid production, and it will acidify the wort to about 3.5 pH. That's sort of. Beer usually is around 5.5, and it will lower to about 3.5. Below that, it begins to get really acid, and for my palate, it's as low as I go. Perhaps 3.2, I believe, was the lowest one I had. Alright, so you have two steps, one acidification and later on regular fermentation. And I must say that when you do it with lacto, you must keep your wort at a temperature of about 30 to 45 C. And that's not an easy task. You must do it for about 1 to 2 days, and you need to keep an eye on the wort pH so it doesn't lowers too much. Now you must be able to follow it and stop when it gets to the desired value, and then you move on to the boiling, hopping, and fermentation, regular fermentation. So, what's exciting about Philly Sour from L'Allemand? It's just totally simplifies the way of making sour beer. It is a one-step only fermentation with the production of lactic acid and ethanol in the same fermenter, in the same process, in the same way. So you don't have to do steps and move your wort from one to other fermenter or from one tune to fermenter. So it really simplifies and makes the whole sour beer making process easier, a lot easier. The second thing I want to stress about L'Allemand yeast, this Philly Sour, it's that it's not a Saccharomyces cerevisiae yeast. It's already something which pops out like something strange. We all are familiar with Saccharomyces type yeast, and we use it very regularly. It's the most common yeast for beer making, homebrewing, and industrial kinds. Everyone uses Saccharomyces. It can be Pastorianus or Cerevisiae. It can be top fermenting or bottom fermenting if you are doing ale or if you're doing lagers. Well, the unusual stuff are lambic ones, which are produced by natural fermentation, let's say, but that's exclusive of some kinds, some types of beer and some places. Okay, we already have many commercial yeast for lambic production, as for soured ones too, but it's not something so well known and not so commonly used. Philly Sour is a non-Saccharomyces yeast. It's Lachaussier. I hope that's the pronunciation of this, and that's the kind of yeast that is. It was made by a joint venture, collaboration from the University of Sciences at Philadelphia and L'Allemand. That's the work of Professor Matthew Faber, if I am not mistaken, and his group, which was able to isolate and verify the potential use of this yeast into beer making. And at the end, they moved together, University of Science and L'Allemand, to present this commercial type of non-Saccharomyces yeast for the brewing community. What can I say more about the Philly Sour? As I said already, it's a nice non-Saccharomyces yeast. Its fermentation temperature will be about 20 to 25 C. It's a one-step fermentation, which means you can do your beer in a regular way. Then you mash, sparge, you boil, add hops, cool, transfer to a fermenter, aerate, and then you place your yeast, which will be Philly sour ones. So as you can see, the process of beer making is the exactly same process as a common ale or a common lager. You have to set your fermentation temperature a little bit higher, but nothing so unusual. 20C, 22C, it's fairly used fermentation temperature for Weiss beer, for instance, for example. So there's nothing wrong about that. After you placed your pitch in your yeast, placed your temperature to 20-25 C, you let it ferment for 10 days. It will take a little bit longer than usual ale yeast, which ends fermentation in like 3, 4, or 5 days. This one will take 10 days. Why is that? Because it's a wild yeast. It was collected from nature, it was isolated, and it's placed to make beer for us, but it's not a strain, a yeast strain which was during several hundreds of years, let's say, I'm not sure how to say in English, but acclimated into the beer making process. So the commercial yeasts that we have are the selections of hundreds of years into beer making. So they are like the total pros of beer making. They are the best of the best yeast that can be used to beer making. They are the fastest, the strongest, the hardest, the cleanest, and the most well-known yeast we have for beer making. That's not true for Philly Sour. Philly Sour is a new kind, a new strain, and as such, it's not really the best one for beer production. It's the best one which was isolated in that screening of 100 and thousands of yeast, collected yeasts, and that one was selected. Most likely there will come others. Better, perhaps. Different, for sure. You can have several types of Philly kind of souring yeasts. And well, then you have temperature a little bit warmer, 20 to 25 C. Time a little bit longer, 10 days. Fermentation has a clear two-step profile. The first one takes about 4 to 5 days, and it's the acidification step where lactic acid is produced. The sugar, simple sugars as glucose is consumed by the yeast, and it produces ethanol and lactic acid. And you can see a constant drop in pH until it reaches something about 3.5. Around the 5th day of fermentation, you see a change in the fermenting profile, and the yeast begins to consume the more complex sugar as maltose and maltodextrose. So those will be the sugars which the yeast will begin to consume. And as such, gravity will fall, alcohol content rises, and you may produce beers with an alcohol content up to about 9% ABV. So it can go up until 9%. That is fairly high, and it allows you to make a whole world of possible sour styles. Strong, regular, and light beers in alcohol content can be produced. Well, the final thing I wanna share with you guys about the L'Allemand Philly Sour is the aroma and taste profiles of the produced beer. As L'Allemand states in their advertising material, the beer produced has a acid profile. Of course, it's a souring yeast, but also it comes with tropical fruits, aromas, peach, for instance, melon. Also, it comes with somewhat citric fruits, which usually are kind of associated to acidity, sort of. Also, there is a rather follow-up of red apple. In fact, in a webinar about Philly Sour, Dr. Matthew Faber relates the aroma and taste of the beer with cedar. So you have this red apple, green apple thing coming up, tropical and citrus fruits, and acid. That's a quite nice profile, and it really comes well into sour beer. You will not have any pepper or spicy, and you will not have any clove in it. This is a phenolics off type, kind of, so it won't go into the beers as Weiss beer, for instance. That's not a beer you will be able to make with that yeast. Okay. Also, there is a strong dependence of the souring and of the aroma and taste profile with the pitch rate. If you under pitch, you have problems in the souring and in the aroma and taste profiles. If you over pitch, you also have issues on that. So you must keep it at a fairly regular, normal pitch rate, which is about 1,000,000 of cells per ml per degree Plato. So it's kind of like what we use to ale beers. Well, at the end, as you can see, this is not a strange yeast, and sorry, all the conditions to produce this beer, we can make it at home. There is nothing so strange or so unusual about it. I think one last, no, I have a couple more issues to talk about Philly. One of them is about its flocculation. It is a fairly flocculent yeast. It produces some not sure how to say it in English, but the chunks which fall down to the bottom of the fermenter are really not compacted. So if you kind of stir and move your fermenter about, they will break up and yeast will move up again. That would be an issue, but after you break up the chunks, they will also blend in together again and fall down to the fermenter. So it's not really a matter of worries, and the beer comes out fairly clean. The last thing I want to say about Philly Sour is the origin of that yeast, and it's quite fun when Dr. Matthew Faber presented it. I was quite surprised. It's well, University of Science is located at Philadelphia, in the city of Philadelphia, so hence the name Philly. That's to relate to its origin. But there is another curious issue. That's the location where this yeast was collected, near to the University of Science at Philly. There is a park. Yeah, but this park is not just a park, but it is also a graveyard. Exactly. It's a cemetery. And this strain of Philly Sour is collected from a tree in this graveyard, in this park. So that's quite a funny fact about it. And well, I hope that coming years we'll see more and more things coming up about souring non-Saccharomyces yeast to make the souring process easier, and as easier as it gets, it will become also commoner. There will be more people making sour beers, and I think we'll see some unusual styles, sour styles coming up in the years to come. As you have now an easy alternative to produce sour beers, they will become commoner, and you have more and more styles and new sour beers coming up, or so I hope. Well, finally, so as we can end this, I am putting this 1 hour chat, so we are now about like 43 minutes. Okay, let us try to end this with one final talk. As you might have already guessed, I have two channels. One is in Portuguese only. Well, not only, I am kind of mixing things in English, things in Portuguese, but it's like 99.9% in Portuguese. One or other video I place in English. And I have a secondary channel which I try to keep it a pure English one. I will leave links for them in this video description when I place it in YouTube. I think I will link this channel, Twitch channel, to those as well, so you might follow me there. Well, I began in Portuguese a series of chats, and it's placed also on Instagram as stories. No, not stories. IGTV stories. It goes away after 24 hours. No, these are left into the IGTV of Instagram, but it's in Portuguese. And this series of talks is related to beer making ingredients. As you might know or not, if not, believe me, beer is made with 4 simple ingredients. which are, first of all, and the biggest part of beer is water. The second is barley malts. Barley malts and other malts and other grains or fermentable. You can use, for instance, like corn syrup. I use to provide fermentable sugars. For the yeast, the third ingredient, for the yeast, the third ingredient, to be able to consume those sugars and convert them into ethanol, which is the most likely beer ingredient responsible for happiness when you drink beer. So far you have water, you have malts, which barley must be, by law here in Brazil, at least 50% in weight of the, let's say, grain bill. But not only grain bill, actually it's 50% of the total of fermentable sugars must come from barley malt. That's imposed by law in Brazil. I think it's the same in most countries. You have some kind of regulation. So you have water, malt, barley, and other grains, malts, and fermentables, yeast, and hops. Also in Brazil, for regulation, you must have hops in beer. You can use any other bittering ingredients, but you need to place hop as well. And I began to chat about these 4 ingredients, and I began by the largest one of them, which is water. Most likely you have that. I'm quite sure you have regulations and standards for the potability of water. What are the contaminants allowed, their levels, also the ways to analyze each of them. This is also quite established, and the standards at which you must provide the water to the consumer. So your water treatment company must make sure that the water is clean, odorless, colorless, can't have any pathogenic bacteria or microbes, and so on and so on and so. You have any sort of regulations, but at the end that's sort of that way. And for the beer making process, you can have water which you take from the distribution company, from the water treatment company, or what many beer making companies do is to use their own water. They gather water from a well, on the surface, subterranean reservoirs of water reservoirs, where you have a well, or not sure how to say that in English, but you pull out water from the underground. Or you use surface water. That would be a pond, a river, a stream, a lake. When you do that, the water treatment responsibility is of the beer making company. So the water must be treated to come to potability standards and then use it into the beer making process. That's nothing new, and it will be the same I believe, in any country. For any beer or food making process, any food related industry must work the same way. And as I see water into the beer making process, I think it has three major roles. So I will state this, and in some additional upcoming chats, I will try to elaborate more on them. But those three roles, those three water roles into the beer making process, I will, let's say, I will focus on the beer. Okay, fourth role of water, which you might think of, is for cleaning and sanitation. That will be a fourth role, but that water, it's a wastewater. It's not used into the beer making. It's not used into the beer, into the actual beer. It doesn't goes into the beer. The water that used, for instance, let's say to wash out a fermenter before the next batch, will be put away. Okay? Or the water you use to clean bottles, or kegs, or barrels, or so on. This water is a contaminated water, let's put that way. And as such, you can treat it. Yes, you can. If you have the cash, you can place a water treatment plant at your industry, and when you treat that plant and you treat that water and it has the same specs of potability as the water you take from the well or any other source of water, you can use it. But you must treat and prove that it's clean and potable, so that you can use it back into your process. That's a nice issue, because with that you, let's say, you will not spend so much water as you would usually do. Let's recall that you use about 3 to 10 liters of water to produce 1 single liter of beer. So that's the scale, 3 to 1 or 10 to 1. That depends on how much you are able to recycle and reuse your water. As you can see, it's very intense in water, the beer making process. Well, 3 roles then are, first of all, water is a heat isolant and a heat storage. I see that when you begin to place water into your mash tun and you begin to heat it up, and temperature doesn't spike right away. It begins to move fairly slowly, and it also has some kind of inertia, as when you shut down your heating element, it still keeps on rising temperature 1 or 2 degrees. So there is this storage of heat, of thermal energy in the water, and that it's not translated into temperature right away. That it's good in itself, but there is also a bad side of it. Good because with that way you don't have, let's say, you have less danger of scorching your malts if you heat them too much. Water acts somewhat like a buffer and protects your malt. On the other side, you must put a lot of heat into the water so that it rises its temperature, so it's fairly expensive. Also, water has a boiling temperature that it's fairly in a mid-range, nothing too low like you'd say, for instance, alcohol, or nothing too high, like you'd see, for instance, vegetable oils. Water is just about right. We can reach boiling temperatures with some energy spent, but not so much as vegetable oils. That helps also because you won't see such a strong vaporization of water as you see in ethanol, for instance. So that's good for the industry. So first role of water is a heat isolate, and a heat storage thing. Second role of water would be a solvent. It acts as an universal solvent, and as it's a polar compound, it can dissolve a lot of interesting things such as mineral salts, several organic acids, amino acids, proteins, enzymes, and starch. So as you can see, it's kind of exactly the thing we need for barley malts or any other malts. We need to have something which will dissolve mineral salts, enzyme, proteins, starch, amino acids, and so fairly nice and works great for us. So the second role of water would be as a universal solvent. We'll discuss it more also when related to the water content, water pH, and other mineral salts which are dissolved into that word. The third water role, it's an active as a reactant into the series of chemical or biochemical reactions which take place in the world, catalyzed by the enzymes. If you don't have water, those enzymes won't work. And you can fairly see it as when you go to dry the malts to storage it, what you really want to do is to stop the biochemical reactions which are taking place in the grain. In that way, the starch, the enzymes, the amino acids, the proteins, and the same enzymes will be kept intact for years to come. 1 year, 2 years, you can storage that grain, and it will be still good to use further on. Also, it will avoid any growth of pathogen, molds, or insects. So that's good. Not that the low water content prevents from the pathogen and stinks, but insects, but it kind of blocks them a bit away. Okay. Anyway, you must also, if you storage grain, you need to have absolute care and precautions about them, and especially if you are a home brewer and you storage grains at your home, take every single precaution you can. Storage it always into recipients. Never leave your grain bag, your grain sack on the ground. Never. Put it into some plastic, for instance, container, and try to keep it away from sun, away from water, rain, humidity, always fresh. That way your grain will be always good. So I hope that in upcoming chat we can discuss about these 3 roles of water and how they perform into the beer making process. Again, if you have any issues, any questions, any doubts, any comments, look me up in the social media and we'll be available to answer you. Also, please, this is a one-man operation, so I'm not 24/7 up to it, so it takes a little while. Today, I am with the Duff Beer t-shirts as we recall our very funny character from The Simpsons. That's who it would be, Homer Simpson. And well, I think that's it. We'll stay here, folks. Hope you enjoyed. If you need anything, let me know. Also, I would like to ask you, please, if you can, share these chats and channel with others. I believe we are very, very few beer streamers in Twitch. So if you may help us grow, I hope soon I can leave my recorded videos in here, and that way it will be much easier for me. Right now I have to do only lives. Okay? Well, take care então. Bye bye and stay safe. See you then.